I pushed my LB7 donor in the shop for the 57 GMC. At least that's the current plan, unless I change my mind, because I can never make up my mind what I want to do with stuff. But I have this truck, the 57 sitting outside, and the frame I want to put it all on. That's taking up 3 spaces. If I get the engine and trans off this, put them on the frame, put the cab off the 57 on the new frame, get rid of everything I don't need, that's down to 1 vehicle space. So as much as I mess with building vehicles out of 3 or 4, I'd like to consolidate stuff, even if it's not going to run anytime soon, just to free up space and get rid of all the crap that I don't need. So I'm going to start ripping damaged parts off of this and throw them in the bed. I'm going to skip all that. I pulled the cab last night. I just rolled the chassis out, pulled the engine and transmission off of it, and set it on this regular cab frame. So I wasn't sure what all was aftermarket on this truck. He showed me a receipt for new injectors that were done right before it got wrecked. That transfer case is new. It's got a downpipe, which is nice. Unfortunately, they didn't do up pipes. It has kryptonite upper control arms and tie rods. There's airbags with a pump and a switch and gauge and stuff inside, so that's pretty nice. Airbag kit I can put on my other Duramax. I'll probably save this kryptonite stuff for the Duramax Jimmy. And it had merchant engine mounts. The passenger side one got a little bent. I think I can bend that back. And it had this fast pump. That new one I bought for the Jimmy. This one was from another part out. I was trying to figure out what sizes they are last night. The new one's a 165. The only thing I could find online was if there's an A here, it's supposed to be a 165. That has a B. That has an A, so I think that one's 100. I'll put that on the 57. I'm going to put this one on my LBZ. As far as damage, radiator intercooler pipes, radiator hose, that's all easy enough. The tensioner and the fan is bent. It doesn't really look like anything else. Oh, is that cracked right there? But I've got a parts engine in the shop. You can see a crack on that piece down there. But I did start this, so I just have to replace the damaged parts. And unfortunately, the bell housing's cracked, which looks newer. So I wonder if it was cracking anyway. Maybe they didn't have good U-joints or something, or maybe it just cracked in the wreck. I guess where it's on this side, everything got shoved in that way. It would have put stress on it like that because it broke the transmission mount and it was pushed over this way. So doing the bell housing is going to suck. It doesn't look like the rear main's leaking, so I otherwise wouldn't even separate the two. But I have that Allison right there with a broken tail housing that has a good bell housing, so I can pull that one off. There is a gasket behind it, and it's hard to get a torque converter to spline in an Allison from my experience. Versus a smaller trans, you just wiggle it till it goes in. The last time I put one in an Allison, I had to stand it upright, so I guess when I someday get that one off of there, I'll just stand them both upright. Swap bell housings, unless I can find a core cheap with a good bell housing and tail housing, then I can fix both of them, because that one is good. And I've got this LB7 that's locked up. I don't know why yet. I'd like to fix this if I can, but I can take all the parts I need off of it. So now I need to roll this out of the way, roll this chassis back in, and set the cab on it so that I can roll all of that out of my way, and then I will push the 57 in and pull the cab. The question is, how's it all going to fit, especially the radiator and intercooler? I think there's plenty of room in there for the engine. Maybe trimming. I'll probably have to trim the bottom of the inner fenders to clear the frame. But I did some measuring, and I think the intercooler is probably going to sit about here, so I'm going to have to probably cut out the inner fenders on both sides and make my own core support, because the core support is the front cab mount. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I was looking at, I forget which shop built it. They had I think it's a 57 Chevy with a Duramax, and they used an air-to-water intercooler up on top of the engine, so something like that would be an option. But it would be nice to just be able to fit a stock intercooler and radiator in here and be able to close the hood. Well, I brought it in and pulled the cab with the lift, but I got the cab off, the old frame out, I rolled the new one in. Let's see how well everything fits under the hood once I lower the cab down. This is a much tighter fit than I thought, just measuring before I put the cab over it. The firewall's hitting the downpipe and the cab is a little too far backwards. So that's really not a big deal to clearance the firewall. Then the cab will be forward another inch or two, but I got no room for a radiator and intercooler in here. With that clutch fan gone, I could get like a reproduction style aluminum radiator and fan in there. I don't know if that's good enough to cool this, probably around town, but maybe not going down the freeway. But then what about an intercooler? Because there was that Chevy that was done with a air to water intercooler up here, and then I could mount a heat exchanger up front for that. It looks like I've got room to get a steering shaft. I would probably want to mount a Hydra boost up here. There's room for that. Booster and master cylinder up here. I was hoping I had enough room to just use the engine harness stock with a stock truck fuse box and run a few wires into the cab to get it to run. There's not a lot of room for that, so I would have to modify this harness and just use a little universal fuse and relay block, run some wires in the cab. I could do that. So it's still possible. I'm not going to give up just yet. I got to look into some options for an intercooler and see what it would cost. But if I just decide it's not worth trying to put a Duramax in this, then I will have to put a 6-liter in it instead.